We want to redeliver peace and prosperity, right? Voters of color really benefit when wages are rising. Voters of color really benefit when normal people can afford to buy a home, and we want to bring back some of those common sense policies. But if you look at the statistics, when you allow rioters to set fire to a city, or when the police are not empowered to do their job, it is very often voters of color that suffer disproportionately, right? It is voters of color who benefit the most from public safety, and I think that we have to get some common sense back. Now, that doesn't mean, of course, that we don't want police to have good relationship. Tough on crime does not mean tough on every single person who lives in a neighborhood with high crime. But when I talk to people in neighborhoods with high crime, often, not always, of course, voters of color, they actually love the police. They've got good relationships with the police. Of course, there are bad apples here and there, but most people recognize the police are there to keep them safe. And if we don't make it possible for the police to lock up the bad guys, the murderers, the armed robbers, then it is very often Black voters, especially in the state of Michigan, who suffer the most. You know, one thing that really bothers me about the left's narrative on criminal justice reform and a lot of their attacks on police is, again, that it is very often Black voters who suffer the most when the police aren't empowered to do their job. We have got to change this. There's an idea out there, I think, that Americans often forget, that the worst violent criminals, right? It's a very small group of people who commit the most egregious and most often commit the worst violent crimes. Nobody, Black, white, or anything else, wants us to do anything other than lock up the most violent criminals. You do that, and you empower the police to do that, you solve a whole host of the violent crime problem, and voters of color, I think, benefit from that as much as anybody.